Hello, Rock Paper Swords here, and thanks. Mike, better have that. Rock Paper Swords here, and we are here again at the Historical Novel Society Conference 2024 in Dartington Hall in Devon, and we have one of Devon's own, or at least someone who's living in Devon at the moment, and has been for the last couple of decades at least. The great author David Gilman, who's already been on the show before, but welcome back to Rock Paper Swords. David.
Thank you, Matthew, Stephen. Great to be here.
Oh, you didn't turn off after all that.
Okay, David, so how are you finding the conference then? Have you enjoyed it so far?
Yeah, it's been very good because I noticed when I sat in on the Ian Mortimer talk just now, and I have to say, when I first started off not knowing a thing about the medieval period, what was the first book I picked up was Ian's book on medieval travellers.
Yeah, me too.
It was such an eye-opener, and I found it was such an easy entry into getting into living in that period. And it was an enormous help. If nothing else, I owe him a beer because he did a great job. And I think his series of books they just work for people who are doing their initial research into their period.
It's quite light.
Yeah,
but it's deep enough.
Good. And sitting on the panel with Matthew and Elizabeth, I think there was a lot more we could have talked about.
Absolutely.
And I noticed, I think because we all got asked the same question, we got a little bit repetitive, let's face it, because you have to put your own point of view forward. But there was so much we could have explored, particularly the writing process, which I think would have been quite interesting for the audience. And they were a very enthusiastic audience. So I think that would have been something we could have expanded upon.
Yeah, I agree, and it's always a difficult thing running a panel. So we were on this panel, we're getting asked the questions.
Yeah. It's not a criticism; it's more a comment, really. On the time was fairly short. You've got 3 speakers. We all have our own genre that we're talking about, but there are processes within that I think would have been of interest, and it was just a time constraint.
I think it was the time constraint more than anything. I think we would have got there. We had more questions planned, didn't we? But we just couldn't get there. But, well, you were talking about the talk. We were in that great hall, Dartington Hall. It's amazing, the great hall. Have you been here before to Dartington, as you live relatively nearby?
I lived in Totnes. My wife and I lived in Totnes for nearly 30 years. And Dartington Hall was our come-to place. And there used to be an excellent literary festival here called Way with Words. And we used to attend that. They had some great authors here. And I remember the first time I went into the Great Hall, and for anybody who's listening who hasn't been here, I would urge you to come because it's just a fabulous place to come to. And when you walk into that Great Hall and you see how high it is, how it's built, the size of that fireplace, I think I must have written about that fireplace a dozen times. How many men can fit into a medieval fireplace? So there are things you immediately see and you immediately grasp about the period. And of course, in its own right, Dartington Hall has such a good history. The Elmhurst who sorted it out. There are good books on the Elmhurst man. She was the Singer sewing machine. Wow. That's where the money came from to come here. And between them, they set up a liberal arts education. And all the old crafts, they were established here. So it's a really good history just on Dartington Hall alone.
And have you been to any other previous Historical Novel Society conferences, and how does this one compare?
Well, I haven't. This is my first. So I was very, very pleased to be invited, and it's nice to sit on the panel. It's good.
Yeah. Well, I watched the panel and it was quite entertaining. Yeah, good authors.
Good authors and me.
And you.
And me, yeah. So talking of authors and good authors, what book would you like to plug? Because we're going to have just a short chat today. So what would you like to plug before you go?
Okay. In 3 days' time, the paperback edition of my latest Master of War, called To Kill a King, is published.
Brilliant.
Hardback came out beginning of the year, paperback in 3 days' time, 10th of September. And I think it's going to be a good read. We had very good response on the hardcover, the readers.
Mm-hmm.
So paperback, obviously a broader audience, hopefully, and we'll see what happens.
Oh, brilliant. And I remember on the panel, Sharon Bennett-Connolly said that she thought it was the best closing
last two
couple of
pages,
pages of any novel that she's ever read, which is praise indeed from someone who reads a lot.
Yeah, it is indeed, isn't it? Yeah, it was. I have to say, it was really nice to get that reaction because the writing of that book, I was going to a place I didn't think I was ever going to get out of. And that ending, I have to say, is probably down to the last line of that book. So I'll tick that box and I'll take the compliment. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Well done.
Just going to say that you could use her endorsement for future books. It's the best 2 pages I've ever read.
I'll make a note of that, Stephen. Thank you. I must get in touch with Sharon.
Brilliant. Well, thanks ever so much again for your time coming here and to appear on the podcast again. Friend of the podcast now. And best of luck with all the writing. I don't know if you want to mention what you're working on next, or is that all hush-hush?
Well, it's a bit hush-hush. I think I mentioned to you the last time we spoke that I had completed a standalone novel.
Yes, you did, yes.
And that's in the process of being edited. So more of that next year, maybe?
Okay, brilliant. So more books to come, which is always
more
good
books
for
to
your
come.
readers.
Thank you.
So brilliant. Thanks for coming, and thanks everybody, and keep following us and find out more information about the podcast and the Historical Novel Society conference as we put out more videos.
Thanks, Matthew. Thank you, Stephen.
Thanks,
nice
David.
to see you guys.
Thanks, David.